here's the thing. For everybody listening, don't make the same mistake the Bengals just did in any facet of your life.
People are going to get hurt. It's the hockey season.
What about the Jared Cook play on the sideline?
I was very tempted to just put defense.
I'm saying it right now. If Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
Come on, Austin and I have been saying this ever since Joe Burrow got injured.
I don't really think the Dodgers are going to make the World Series this year. I feel like they'll make it to the NLCS.
The Fernando Tatis extension, because that really surprised me.
Like you said, Ovechkin, he's getting older. He hasn't been playing as well as I imagined. He's one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, but he hasn't started off this season as hot as I would hope.
Hi, I'm Jeff Allen, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. And what a rush of gold, some could say a gold rush, of just this NFL free agency. And the man that I was just talking about it with, it's a lot quicker than the MLB free agency. I was hit with a lot of messages. Austin.
Yeah, this has been absolutely insane. Kevin, I'm shocked. I'm even looking at it now and missing deals that I during our conversation. I don't know if you have seen some of the more recent ones.
Oh, whoa. Seahawks are getting Leonard Williams?
Apparently, yes.
I think the biggest thing to me is what the Eagles have done. Also, the Commanders. Did you see the Commanders sign
Austin Eckler. And you think the Cowboys lose their starting running back, Tony Pollard goes to the Titans, but the Commanders add Austin Eckler, and the Eagles add Saquon, and the Giants add Devin Singletary.
And Brian Burns. I know, not running back.
Yeah. I was just bringing up running backs.
Okay.
But
got it.
Yeah. But that's definitely going to have to be a category that the Cowboys have to address, because while all the other three teams are adding, and Devin Singletary had a very impressive end of the season last year with the Texans, so I think he's a decent pickup for the Giants. I don't know necessarily if they plan to use him as a bell cow. I'm sure there'll be a backup for him to take some of those carries off of his plate. But the Cowboys definitely have a job to do. Deuce Vaughn is not going to be the starting running back come September.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Deuce Vaughn. He can't really be the bell cow. I think he's a great piece. Yes, the Cowboys need to do something. To me, my biggest need is a linebacker, but they also lost their center, Tyler Biadasz. They're losing Tyrone Smith. So we'll see what happens, but the thing is, Cowboys aren't going to really do anything, in my opinion. I would love Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones would be cool, but that's probably not going to happen.
I don't get how the Packers – I know why. It's because of the injuries that he's had. But if you look at all of his years, he's extremely efficient runner. Every year, over 4.5 yards per carry. Multiple 5+ yards per carry. Extremely, extremely great runner. And he's not done – I know his injuries have slowed his production over an entire season base. But per game, he's still around the same he's always been. I'm very confident that he can be wherever he goes. I wish him the absolute best. One of my favorite players – since I've been a fan of the Packers. Like, I absolutely love him. It helps that I have family around the area that he is from, so it kind of ties back to him going to UTEP, and that's a crazy journey. Him pick 182. It's definitely been a wild ride, and I wish him the best no matter where he goes. I'm interested to see how Josh Jacobs impacts the Packers and how they decide to use him. I don't think he's best used as a bell cow, but maybe they keep Dillon, even though Dillon had a bad year last year. That's why it's confusing. I thought we were going to get rid of Dillon and then use Jones and Jacobs, but I guess that's not the route that Matt LaFleur and this coaching staff was looking for.
Yes, and that makes more sense because it seemed like they tried to keep Jones, but there was some – because briefly it seemed like it was going to be Jacobs, Jones, Dillon, but then something happened with restructuring the contract. Then they're just like, bye, Jones. But yeah, Jones, you've talked about this, is he's more of a receiving guy. He's better in the receiving game. I don't really see that with Jacobs. So if you had Jacobs and Jones, that would be a better complement to each other than Jacobs and A.J. Dillon. It's a little bit Spider-Man meme-ish because they seem like the same type of running back.
Yeah, Jacobs has gotten better at receiving. The Raiders last year tried to use him in that role, but it was more because they could not run the ball because of how bad their line was and because they knew they were going to run it. So they just throw short passes. you remember this, Jones can catch passes down the field. He can actually run routes. It's not a short screen. It's a route. It's a wheel route, a hitch route that's down the field. While a lot of other receiving backs can't do that catch balls but aren't receiving backs, like McCaffrey, like Jones, like Eckler. Jacobs is not that guy, even if he does catch passes.
Yes, and of course, I think the biggest news is probably Atlanta signing Kirk Cousins. You know, you've been the champion of Kirk Cousins. I think I've been kind of talking about the price, like he's not worth that price. However, it looks like 100 million guaranteed of his contract. So that's around 25 million a year.
Could go up
That's
to 180.
could go up to 180. But guaranteed wise, that's way below market value. Like, I don't know what. So if you're looking at Atlanta, if they want to trade a quarterback or they're going with this value, what would the value be? 180. That'd be 45. Okay, that'd be market value right now if he gets it up. So I like this deal because if they're going to trade for Justin Fields, he's probably getting a base 40 million. However, I think a good thing to know about this Kirk Cousins deal is this is Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles. So that could explain why they got this market value. But if it's the Kirk that just needs a good system around him, which I think the Falcons can provide because you got Bijan, you got Kyle Pitts. Who's the wide receiver? I want to say it was like a USC.
It's you bring him up, Drake London.
Drake London. Okay, that's the guy. So I like that move. I can see it. My main complaint has been this is a guy you can't give top value to, and it looks like they didn't do that. So I'll toss it over to you.
I still believe in Kirk Cousins. We have no reason to believe he can't produce, but we have no reason to believe he can. These injuries are so case by case basis. We don't know if he's going to be Dominic Wilkins, where Wilkins tears his Achilles and then has his greatest scoring season ever, or it's going to be DeMarcus Cousins and he's never the same player again. It could be one or the other. I'm assuming that Rodgers and Kirk Cousins adjusted this differently. The problem with Kirk Cousins is it's the wrong leg for it to be on. It's his back leg when he's throwing, while Rodgers is his front leg. You could survive with the back leg being okay, but not with the back leg being hurt like it is with Cousins. And I'm glad that the Falcons ended up making a move for a QB. It shows more than anything that they're committed to Raheem Morris, him getting a true chance at being a head coach in this league and having success early. But we'll have to see if Kirk can actually fill out the rest of this deal.
That is an excellent point you bring up. Also, back the leg, but I love how you bring up Raheem Morris, and this is really them trusting him because we've seen coaches deal with quarterback issues. So yeah, what a point that was. Especially now, you got your guy for 4 years. Now they just need to fix the line. So are you in favor of the deal? How do you feel?
It's a wait and see type of thing, but I do think that Raheem Morris and Kirk Cousins' success are tied at the hip.
Yeah, I'm still in awe because that's a great point of, you don't have to worry, here's the guy. You don't have to do, I'm trying to think of a coach that's been stuck in quarterback purgatory before. I guess you could say the defensive coordinator now for, Vic Fangio, like he kind of had dealt with
the Broncos, yeah. Or you could even go to Frank Reich with the Colts, back when he was with the Colts, because they lose luck, and then Rivers was only ever going to be there for 1 year. And then you had to go to Carson Wentz, and it's just like, what's really happening here? And every year he has to go with a different guy. But here you're committing to someone who will be there for 4 years if he succeeds, and your job is on the line just as his is.
Yeah, so I always thought he would be a Vikings guy for life, Cousins, or I know he was with Washington, but interesting move. Next thing is I'm trying to think. You have the Titans. Titans were making big moves. They get Pollard, as you mentioned. They also signed Chidobe Awuzie, and it looks like I'm pretty sure they signed someone else. But I think Chidobe Awuzie going to, which makes sense. That's a Bengals guy heading, even though it's on the defensive side of the ball, it's for the locker room. So Love Tony Pollard. I doubt he was. I didn't believe he was going to come back to the Cowboys, but we'll have to see how that running back room grows and
Yeah,
how that offense performs.
the other person they signed was Lloyd Cushenberry III. They signed him to a 4-year, $50 million deal. He was the center for the Broncos, and he's coming over now to be the center for the Titans.
That's a good point. And then the next thing I'm trying to see, there was another team. Oh, how about also, I think a lot of this could be a lot of the salary cap reasons. Like, I was shocked when the Bills cut Mitch Morris, Tre'Davious White, and then they didn't. Gabe Davis goes to the Jaguars. I've talked to a Bills fan. He's not a huge fan of Gabe Davis, or this is before the signing, but I like Gabe Davis, and I like this addition for the Jaguars.
I think the biggest thing is that he can be a good wide receiver too, and he's not going to be, at least I don't think he's going to have to be forced into a wide receiver one scenario. I'm assuming that Ridley's a free agent, right?
Yes, and there were rumors that he may not come back, but this gives you an option for if Ridley doesn't come back. But if they can get Ridley, because I think that was our main issue, outside of them just falling short and being inconsistent, getting Trevor Lawrence, another wide receiver, would be helpful if they can bring back Ridley.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I'm trying to think. Very active day. Smaller deals happened. The Raiders signing Minshew is interesting. It's a good backup option or a good,
or even low end starter. He can be a starter. I don't think he's out of the. He's low end, meaning 26 to 32 range, but I don't think he's incapable of winning games.
Yes. When I say backup option, he's a good option if you don't land the draft pick you want. So he can be a good starter. It gives you some freedom in the future. You're not dedicating. You're like, you're our guy. However, you can be our guy. So
he's a good transitional piece.
Yes. And then the next thing we'll talk about, just kind of off the cuff, the Bucks somehow retain Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge. And now the Bucks look like they're playoff contenders again. Those are the three guys they needed to sign. I know they traded away Carlton Davis to the Lions, but I think they're confident in their young secondary in Tampa that they can produce a good season.
Yeah, and a lot is still going on. But what about that division right now of the NFC South? You got Falcons getting their quarterback, Baker. So Falcons with Kirk. You got Baker with the Bucks. I'm assuming Derek Carr, and then Bryce Young.
Yeah, and the Panthers. I don't know if you saw. You mentioned that they traded away Brian Burns, but they just signed Robert Hunt, an offensive lineman from the Dolphins, to a 5-year, $100 million contract. That's $20 million a year, and that's to protect, obviously, Bryce Young.
I want to say USC alum, Robert Hunt.
He went to Louisiana.
Oh, okay. I think I'm thinking of Austin Jackson. But yeah, no, that's a great point as well. Upgrading the line. We saw a lot of teams upgrade the line. You saw, I think Landon Dickerson got an extension with the Eagles. Then a guard from the Lions joined the Rams.
Yep.
So, yeah, what a wild day. And it looks like the Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett.
Yep. That just happened recently as well.
Yeah.
Josh Allen restructured his contract. Ronald Darby, a cornerback, signed in Jacksonville. I think that's a good signing.
Yeah, I like that too. And then it just looks like the Viking, Jordan Hicks signed with the Browns. And then another thing about the Browns is they traded for Jerry Jeudy. We'll have to see what happens. He was kind of he's a project to me right now.
Yeah, that's another trade I can't really diagnose until I see. Was that a Denver problem or was that a Jerry Jeudy problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. So a lot can still happen. Like we mentioned, Tre'Davious White. Are there more cuts? There's, of course, Derrick Henry. They may have been rumored with the Cowboys. But yeah, a big answer right now is how did the Cowboys respond to everyone else in the NFC East? making moves.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of crazy how many running backs signed today between, obviously, we mentioned Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs and Saquon and Devin Singletary, but also DeAndre Swift goes to be the starting running back most likely in Chicago, which is very interesting because I thought that he was going to stay. Obviously,
Same.
yesterday, Russell Wilson signed with the Steelers, so they get their starting quarterback. What do you think about that?
Oh,
It's,
yes.
it's only a $1.2 million deal
Woman-
because the Broncos are paying 38 for him this year.
Yes. And, oh, man, I completely forgot about that because of the other news. Okay, maybe I did say this with Sean Payton. This is the place where if Russell Wilson, this is the place where Russell Wilson could become or return to some type of form of what he was in Seattle. Because you're putting he's your number one coach, Mike Tomlin. He's my number two. And I think Mike Tomlin would be like, hey, man, if you're not doing this, you're cut.
I don't know about cut, but I get your point. Yeah.
It doesn't have the financial leverage that was there in Denver.
To keep his job.
To keep his job. So yeah, I think that's a scary move if it works. It's kind of like Wembanyama with the Spurs. I know, very different, but if there's one place where the best case scenario can happen, to me, Russell Wilson with the Steelers is that scenario. Just like Wembanyama and the Spurs, when you think about what could go wrong, but this is the best place where it could go right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just like to ask you a question. What is your most underrated deal that has happened so far?
Underrated deal. Ooh, that's a good question.
I can go first if you're not ready yet.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, mine is Danico Autry signing with the Texans for 2 years, $20 million. I know he's already 33, but he just had his best season with the Titans last year, 11 and a half sacks. If the Titans could pair Danico Autry with obviously Will Anderson Jr. this next season, and you have two guys who are very capable pass rushers and are able to get 10 plus sacks, I think it really does help bolster their defense because their defense was good last year, but it could always be better. And it'll add a lot to this team being a playoff team.
That's a good one. I'm double checking. But yeah, no, that is a good deal. The Texans have made a lot of deals and good ones.
Yeah, Jeff Okudah is another one.
Yes, that's one place where it could work. I'm double checking. I'm trying to see. Where are they? Oh, I think I'm gonna go. Is it a small time deal or can it be like a move?
It just has to be underrated. What you consider
Okay.
underrated. It doesn't have to be small or big or anything. It just whatever you think people aren't showing enough attention to or respect to.
I think this may have kind of gotten lost. I'll choose another one, or maybe I'll mention this one separately, and then I forgot Christian Wilkins is going to the Raiders.
Yeah, that D line's now good between Max Crosby and him. I do think that could be a dangerous force. However, they still have to improve the back end of that defense, or they're going to be abused in the passing game still.
Yes. So I don't know if I'll give that as my deal. I'm trying to see it.
It also appears that as you mentioned that Leonard Williams is going to Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like it's almost certainly going to happen. And that's, I think, big because the Seahawks are, I think, trying they signed a defensive head coach and they are trying to bolster their defense for him.
Speaking of defense, I think I found my underrated deal. This is a guy I've heard a lot about. There was a lot of hype, especially with the Cowboys. He was with the Titans. Azeez Al-Shaair goes to the Texans. He's a great linebacker, and I think he's great with the run game. So, and he's going to D'Amico Ryans, who you saw what he did. We all saw what he did with the Niners defense. We had some great linebackers. Of course, Azeez Al-Shaair is not Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw, but I think he's a good option at linebacker, and it can help the Texans build some sort of defense similar to the Niners defense. It's not the exact same thing, but with what the Niners were able to do with great linebackers, I think is what D'Amico Ryans is trying to do. And I think Azeez Al-Shaair can do that.
Yeah, I trust his judgment.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are some underrated moves. You and I both chose the Texans, and yeah, man, we'll have to see what happens the next few days. But yeah, what a day. And I'll toss this over to you and let you close it out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. What was your favorite deal, most underrated deal thus far? Who were you surprised got released? Because I know as a Packers fan, seeing Bakhtiari and Jones gone was huge. And thank you guys for listening.